is Nana Serwa Kankam. I'm on the advisory council of the Africa Soft Power Project, which is a movement focused on how the continent can optimize its creative industries, knowledge economy, and harness its soft power to effectively propel itself forward, while also championing the inclusion of African voices and the voices of the diaspora community in global discourse. This May's edition is titled The Bridge, the Past, the Present, and the Future. And it has been specifically timed to begin on May 5th, which is Africa World Heritage Day, and end on May 25th, which is Africa Day. Our overarching objective is to establish the celebration of Africa's contemporary industries within wider global conversations, and we therefore invite the whole world to join us in the celebration of May as Africa Month. Our session today is called Eye of the Beholder, the trajectory of Black beauty beliefs, standards, and businesses. And we'll be covering a number of topics that our panelists and moderator will take us through, but generally we'll be asking, as Black-owned businesses increase racial representation in the beauty industry, how do they navigate the industry's limiting structures while mainstreaming Black beauty standards? We are joined by a group of phenomenal, inspirational women who you're going to love to hear from. We have Feven Yohannes, Freda Obeng-Ampofo, Shingi Mtero, and Vivian Kaye, who will all serve as panelists and share their insights and perspectives. We will be guided by Tomi Talabi, who is the founder of the BlackBeautyMarket, which is an enterprise focused on resolving the inadequate representation of Black-owned beauty brands within the industry. And she's also the founder of the Black Beauty Club, which looks at beauty from a cultural lens. We are super excited to have her along with our panelists to guide the conversation. Before we get started, I just want to thank the audience for tuning in from all over the world and extend a big thank you to our media and strategic partners for supporting us in this event. Tomi, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to have this conversation. We are currently in a state of the world where Black beauty is getting the opportunity to drive its own narrative, to ultimately make an impact. And I love the idea of talking to this woman here to see how we can actually take control of this narrative and help guide it so that it doesn't happen to us, but we're actually the ones shifting the narrative. It's very rare to have this opportunity to be able to shift beauty standards, to shift what Black beauty means across Africa, across the diaspora. Excited to have, I'm gonna do a quick intro. Obviously, some of you guys might know Feven Yohannes already. She's the co-founder of 241 Cosmetics. It is a beauty brand that is empowering women. And I know that she was on Oprah's Favorite Things. And that's one of the reasons why I actually am aware of this brand. So I'm really excited to have you here. I'm also very excited to have Shingi Mtero here as well. She is an amazing scholar and a PhD candidate at Department of Political and International Studies at Rhodes University in South Africa. Really excited about her thoughts on this, especially as someone who studies the politics of skin bleaching, African feminism. We know there's a lot to go down in there, so that is exciting. Also, then there's Vivian Kaye, founder and CEO of KinkyCurlyYaki. She has bootstrapped up to over $6 million in revenue, and so definitely excited to hear what you have to say from a business perspective. And then Freda Obeng-Ampofo is also the founder and chief mixer of Kaeme Cosmetics, a Ghanaian beauty and cosmetics company. So thrilled to have you guys all here. And I think I'm just gonna start off a little bit calmer, which is sort of from you guys' perspective, how do you guys define Black beauty? And anyone can take.
Well, I guess I'll start. That's a question that we actually asked ourselves, my sister and I. So my company is called 241 Cosmetics, and I'll just give you guys a quick elevator, 15-second pitch is what I do. But it's a play on words. Growing up as twins, Helena and I were, my sister is Helena, by the way, and she couldn't be here. She's the other half of 241 Cosmetics. But so growing up as twins, there's constant comparisons and this, joke where people would say, are you guys 241 FOR? And our father, a really incredible, proud African man, was like, okay, that's actually not funny. There shouldn't be a discount on your self-worth. So when you ask the question, what does Black beauty mean to us? It's actually literally on our landing page. Black beauty to us is, it stems from being political refugees born in a refugee camp in Gibra, Sudan, but we're Eritrean by blood. And for us, beauty is grace and resilience. So that's how I would describe it from our perspective. Yeah.
I would describe it as something that's inside out. One of the things that so what I sell are textured hair extensions. So that's anything kinky, curly, or, blown out straight. And what I quickly realized for me is that it wasn't really about the hair extensions. It was about giving Black women the confidence to show up as themselves in, no matter how they choose to show up. So whether they're working a corporate 9-to-5, whether they're a mother, whether they're a student, whatever the case may be, I wanted to give Black women the confidence to show up in a protective style that looked like their hair. Right. And so for me, Black beauty is it's more of an inside out, because once you feel good about your outside, it's a trickle in effect. And even vice versa. Once you're feeling good inside, then you're more likely to show your confidence on the outside. And if confidence means, you got to wear hair extensions, and girl, do that. So that's what Black beauty means to me.
Yeah. I want to add to that because so Helena and I were really intentional about naming all of our products, because so for example, we have one lipstick that's called, Role Model, and that is because we want women to know that they are the most influential person that they'll ever meet. And I just think in our general brand ethos it's very similar to yours. And you're saying about, you're speaking about confidence. I say all the time, I'm like, confidence really is the best contour. It doesn't matter how much you apply on top. If you don't feel good within, then none of that is going to work. So yeah, I completely agree with you. So
I think I could piggyback a little bit on what Vivian was saying about Black beauty being the ability to show up as you are. And so for many of us, beauty really is political. Being able to show up as you are as a Black woman in the various multiplicity of your textures, of your skin, of your hair, of your body type, whether you have a flat stomach or you have, a few rolls. It's being able to show up as you are, but also understanding that showing up as you are is many times an act of political defiance, particularly in the spaces that we find ourselves that weren't necessarily created for us. And so when we are visible in those spaces as we are, the act of us beautifying ourselves and being visible in those spaces and being noticeable in those spaces becomes a political act, many times an act of defiance. It changes the conception of what being professional is, or being acceptable or being decent. And so when I get asked that question, what is Black beauty? I think more than it just being what we can see, it is what we make people feel when we enter into their spaces. And it is also then what we allow other Black women and other Black people to know is acceptable in these spaces that we then inhabit.
Well, look at the body positive movement. Look at the LGBTQ. A lot of their language comes from Black women, because we have had to big up ourselves. Right. And now they've taken all of our catchphrases and all that stuff and applied. And it's like, but you told us we were ugly.
Yeah.
Now it's fashion.
So I just want to add though, so my sister and I we're 100% Black owned as well. And that's actually being Black business owners for us as a form of protest as well. So I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with all of you. And for Feven, talking about owning a Black-owned business and that as a form of voicing out, who you are and your identity. For me, it's actually been a journey, actually. And thank you, Vivian and Shingi. I think you really nailed it right on you really hit it right on the nail in terms of, for me, it's about being confident in what you have, and that confident to own it. I've traveled quite a bit, and coming back home for me was a form of defiance as well, because for a lot of people from this side of the world, you grow up thinking that you have to travel to somewhere else to be better. And so a lot of us grow up thinking, oh, I have to be out of Ghana, I have to be out of Nigeria, I have to be out of Africa to be good, to make it for greener pastures and all that. And for me, fortunately, I was able to do that. And it's that whole Black identity, my respect for myself and my culture and my identity that led me back home. And coming back home meant a lot of things. Changing my hair the way I want it, wearing my hair the way I want it. And the confidence that comes with it, for me, it's amazing. And you know, I know, Feven, you talked about having a business as well, but part of creating Kaeme, it's also part of that whole Black business thing. What does it, and for me, it means the way I carry myself, the way I carry my hair. Mine is natural, yours could be permed, yours could be a wig, yours could be braids, and that's fine. Whatever makes you feel more comfortable, and carry yourself, and you know, be confident in who you are. And I think that's what, for us, the company is also trying to communicate to the world. And I'm very happy back home. I have to say, I'm very happy. And every time I look back, I'm very happy I moved back to be able to contribute to sort of that change in perspective and that sort of revolution happening back here on the continent.
I completely agree with you, Freda. Where were you before? I'm curious, before going back to Accra.
I lived in Latin America, in Guatemala, and then I was in Washington, DC, and I was in Boston, and I was in Paris, France. I was in Hong Kong.
Wow, so you were a lot
all over the world.
Yeah. But I agree with you. It's about taking all of the lessons and then going back home, because what's the point of all this, right? So,
I think maybe let me ask, I don't know if it is a question or just a comment, piggybacking on what Freda has brought up, this idea that when we leave, we have access to certain amenities, etc., that you wouldn't have access to. And for many of us, because what we see on the TV previously was just avatars of African-American culture, many times that was the conception of beauty that we held. I'm starting to see now, though, a little bit of tension around this idea that African or African-American societies or African societies in the diaspora are the drivers of beauty narratives on the continent. And I'm starting to see a slight bit of contentions around those ideas, that somehow when you leave, then you slightly become more beautiful, more refined. In Zimbabwe, we have these jokes around December, and people will say, oh, you know, all the Zimbabwean girls who are getting attention before, you know, watch out because the +44s are coming. And the idea being that this, you know, the December is going to bring home hordes and hordes of much more beautiful and refined and I guess thinner women who are going to come and, you know, take the attention away from all the people in the society. And so I think maybe that idea of the African diaspora and Africans who live on the continent having different conceptions of beauty, and somehow the diaspora and beauty being the avatar of the most advanced beauty, that for me is an area of intrigue, because really it speaks to this idea that somehow Africans and Africans who live in Africa live in the past or live in a less modern world. And therefore, when people come back, they bring back all the advancement that they've collected from that place and bring it back home.
I love what you're saying. First of all, I love how everyone has described Black beauty in the first place. I think you guys nailed every single point perfectly. And I definitely want to come back to what you just said, Shingi, because that is, I've been hearing so many conversations around the, what do you call it? Just the Black diaspora. Some people even call it some diasporan wars as well. But even just this whole idea of, you know, getting better ideas from the West. And I think there's obviously a bigger conversation to have around there, and I'll definitely come back to that. But I wanted to ask you guys before we dive into that, actually, is now that there's been so much awareness and so much publicity, and there is this sort of like back end behind what Black beauty is, Black communities, Black issues, have you guys noticed any like shift in perception of, or images of just what Black beauty is from the outside perspective?
Well, I mean, I can speak from experience. So my company launched July 2019. And Helena and I, at that time, we couldn't afford models. So our advisor told us, why don't you guys become the face of your brand? We didn't launch foundations. We really just focused on neutral lipsticks, eyeliner, which, you know, came from the Egyptian era. And a lot of the color palettes that we chose, like in terms of the liquid velvet lipsticks, we have one that's Asmara, and which was named after the capital of Eritrea. And then Queen, because I want, you know, women to remember that they have the power to crown themselves. But so we became the face of the brand. And then and around, I would say, I think it was March, or was it March? Yeah, the Black Lives Matter movement kind of took off, right? And so we saw from our end a sold out store, you know, within, and I mean, Helena and I were sold out for, you know, 2 months, which is kind of crazy. So we did see that wave, if that's what you're getting at. So we saw, and then a publication called In Style Magazine picked us up. And then after that, Oprah's team reached out. So I am seeing, you know, companies like, and also like made, you know, huge conglomerates like, you know, Estee Lauder, reaching out to Black owned and companies trying to be a little bit more inclusive. But at the end of the day, investing in Black owned businesses, that's not a charity, that's just good business. We spend 9 times more than non-Black counterparts. And it's about time that people kind of they take our money seriously, they don't take us seriously. So I think we kind of shift the narrative in terms of that.
Yes, I completely agree with that. You know, Shingi, I wanted to ask, obviously, because you do a little bit more of like study in this area, but what are your thoughts on, you know, just Black beauty standards within our communities overall? And, you know, how do you women especially think about, you know, what women in Africa especially think about what their features are like, you know? So I think that's 2 double questions. And I also would also love Vivian and Freda to jump in on that as well, because I think there's a lot of question around that within like hair as well. But yes.
I think how women conceive of their beauty, or what they consider to be beautiful, is a complex subject, and it's a complex notion, because beauty, like, I mean, your title is in the eye of the beholder. So the idea is that beauty is context specific, but also beauty and what is considered to be attractive also intersects with our specific histories. In Africa, it intersects with our colonial histories. It also intersects with our cultural and religious beliefs. And these things all intersect as well with heteronormativity. So the idea that you are more acceptable if you are heterosexual, and you are more acceptable and attractive because you are attractive for the male gaze. And those things all interact then with the influences of globalization. So to say that, how do African women conceive of their beauty? There's no easy or one answer to that, but definitely the ways in which our societies conceive of beauty and conceive of what is acceptable and attractive influence how then we beautify ourselves and what we consider to be beautiful in the society. Within our continent, we know that ideas around fair skin or lighter skin, longer noses, longer faces, as opposed to flatter noses and wider faces, are still, these features are still things that people hope, for instance, that when they get pregnant, they don't give birth to a child who has a wide nose like their grandmother. Those sorts of things still persist. So these ideas around what beauty is intersect with our colonial understandings, or rather intersect with whiteness, and they influence the way that we see ourselves. I am happy, though, that we have so many different influences or influencers of what beauty is. So depending on what you look like, or who you want to look like, or what you consider to be beautiful, there's a multiplicity of women, and there are a multiplicity of people that you can look to. So South Africa, for instance, is bountiful in its avatars of beauty. You can literally look around and search for somebody who makes you feel beautiful. There are young people, older people. I think about people like Usiswa, Thick Leonce, people who aren't slender and tall, or that typology of Naomi Campbell beauty. But then there are people who who are Naomi Campbell Beauty, but who speak our languages and who carry our names and who look like us and who have the same cultural beliefs as us, Anna Boiti or Mihlali, etc. So women like that then create narratives around beauty or become avatars of what we consider to be beautiful. So I think one of the things that globalization or increased technology, whatever it is that you want to call it, has allowed us to do within the continent is to just see different versions of beauty and be able to look at different versions of ourselves in these people that we see. And that for me is a beautiful thing.
I love that 100%. I really do love that. You know, I'm gonna send this to Vivian specifically because, you know, there is an amazing editor at Allure. Her name is Jihan Forbes. And I remember she was telling me about the first time that she was so excited to go to Africa, right? And she thought that she was going to get there and there was going to be like, she's going to get all these like lessons and all these gems about how she's going to like grow her hair, take care of her natural hair. And it's just going to be this like, you know, wonderful like return to the motherland and all of these amazing things. This was a while ago, right? And I know it's a bit shifted a little bit now, but that when she got there, she realized there was not enough of, she could barely find anywhere to get her natural hair taken care of in Africa. And that's always seems to be a point of contention for a lot of people who go back to Africa for the first time in a long time, because they, you know, they assume that, you know, I mean, that this is Africa, this is the motherland, right? So I want to know what your perspective is on that as someone who is in the hair care industry.
Well, you know, what they fail to realize is that we are subject to the colonization, right? So we've had those, you know, you see big billboards with the skin lightening cream and the girls with the straight hair and all that. So, you know, it's sad that people, you know, they always think the grass is greener on the other side, right? Like, oh, if I go back to Africa, it'll fix everything. And it's like, I like to say it's, you know, same poop, different smell, right? So it's the same thing. It just smells different, right? So it's just a matter of, you know, and I'm sad that is the case, but I think technology is helping to bring us back to square one. Right. So when I started my business back in 2012, it was because there were these girls on YouTube showing you how to take care of your 4C hair, because our mothers didn't really know. I mean, if they did know, maybe their grandmothers taught them, but then, you know, they were shamed about it when they went to school and their hair was too nappy. So then, you know, they had to do whatever it is to make it straight. Right. And then they passed it down and, you know, it becomes generational. Right. So they pass that down. Well, maybe we are the first generation that's going to change that and bring us back to square one. Right. So by, you know, even creating a company that has textured hair extensions. And now you've got hair product lines that just cater to just 4C hair. Right. And so I think we're coming full circle. So we're coming back to square one and we're realizing that, you know, the grass is greener on the other side, but our grass can be green too if we water it, right? But we just didn't have the tools. We didn't have the water, right? But now we do, and we're sharing it on a global scale. And, you know, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So slow but sure, right?
I love that. And I'm going to ask a question to everyone, so anyone can jump in. Maybe Freda, you can go up since you haven't had the opportunity to speak. What are your thoughts, or how do you guys feel like we can actually help to start redefining what beauty standards are? Just based on what you've said, Vivian, Shingi, as well as you, with, you know, all of the research you've done around colorism, the politics of colorism. I mean, obviously, there's so much breadth and depth in that. And, you know, I love what you've said. You know, I think we say all the time that Black people are not a monolith, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And beauty means so many things to so many different people, right? So that means that, from my perspective, I feel like, you know, the beauty standards almost need to be broken, or that it doesn't even exist. But I will actually just throw it back to you guys on what you think can be done around that. But I do see that the idea of beauty is definitely expanding a lot more than what it used to be.
I think we have to recognize that we're diverse. First, we're diverse and we're unique each of us is unique. And so that's one thing. With that comes being able to own what it is that makes us feel beautiful, right? So knowing that we're diverse, we're each unique, knowing that, hey, this is what makes me feel beautiful, own it, but also respecting the other and what makes them feel beautiful and comfortable. And I always use myself as an example. I used to have permed hair and it was so long and people loved it because, you know, it's like long hair in Africa and it's straight and silky. It's like the perfect combination. But after college and whatnot, you know, I decided I want my natural hair. So I cut everything. And I was receiving insults left and right because I cut my permed hair to have nappy, natural hair that cannot be combed. But I realized that the more I owned what I had, my natural hair, and the more I spoke about it, people started learning about it and also started becoming more comfortable about what it is that they want their hair or their beauty standard to be. And even moving back home in Ghana, I see that sort of revolution slowly happening, where in the past, you have to be someone else to look beautiful. But now people are owning their beauty in all sorts of ways. And to me, it's so beautiful because what might look beautiful on Shingi might not look beautiful on Vivian or Feven. But if we're all able to own our own unique diversity, whatever you call it, it makes it just, the whole becomes beautiful because we're all appreciating the other and recognizing that it is okay for you to have permed hair. It is okay for you to have braids. It is okay for you to have natural hair. I think it's beautiful. And I think that's, for me, that's the first step. And that's something I've seen happening here in Ghana. Yeah, because people see my natural hair and they say it's beautiful. And I'm like, thank you so much. But yours is beautiful as well. It doesn't have to be natural to be beautiful. It could still be permed and be beautiful. And that's okay. We all don't have to have natural hair. We all don't have to have permed hair. We all don't have to have wigs. We all don't have to have braids. But whatever it is that you choose to have, make that define who you are, be proud of it, and just move with it.
I think one of the beautiful things about this whole pandemic, and I guess the two pandemics, you know, COVID and, you know, the awakening of what happened in the United States, is that now you're starting to see more of what, you're just starting to see more people. And so when you show people, you know what, if this is what I look like and I think it's beautiful, I'm not saying you have to accept it, but if you don't accept it, it's not my problem. Right. And there's more and more of that happening. And so really, maybe like I said, I think this is the beginning of a revolution. Shingi would probably put it in better words than I can, but Shingi, go.
Well, Vivian, throw me under the bus. You know, I think one of the most important things for me, when it came to understanding what was beautiful or what I considered to be beautiful, was being able to see people who look like me. And I think one of the shifts that's going to, for us, or rather I can speak on behalf of myself living on the continent, one of the shifts that needs to take place is being able to consume our own media, being able to access our own media, being able to access it at affordable rates, being able to access our own products that are made for us affordably. I know one of our talking points was about Fenty Beauty. And one of the things that I find really interesting, I know people love Rihanna, so let me not like criticize her openly, but Fenty Beauty, what the hallmark was that it is marketing all these millions of shades of foundation, which interestingly enough are not directly marketed to Africa. So the largest market for Black products is Africa, and we are not directly in their market. So anything that you get from Fenty Beauty is from a secondary or a tertiary provider. we don't have it in our stores, etc. So it's those sorts of things where I start to think to myself, if that is the way that international or global companies think about the continent, with regards to actually making provision for us or allowing us to buy their products, we need to then start creating our own products and being able to consume our own products. For me, for instance, being able to access Nollywood movies on Netflix is a huge deal, because you start to see the multiplicity of different Nigerian people. Same thing with being able to consume South African movies, being able to watch Blood and Water, etc. But then that then needs to permeate into all of our media spaces, being able to see L'Oreal adverts with Nomza Mumbata rather than with Naomi Campbell or whoever else is on those billboards. So for me, I think one of the things that we need to do is start to create a lot of our own media and make it affordable and accessible, making a lot of our own products and making it affordable and accessible. And I guess this would also be a challenge to those of you who create beauty products, to make them affordable and accessible for African markets, to make them directly available to African markets, to sell them in African stores, because many of us can only access them when we have friends who live in England or live elsewhere and then can bring them back for us. Yeah. So for me,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
I want to add to that. So earlier, when I was just saying that it's about taking the lessons and going back home, what I meant was, I just want to be clear on this, is that I remember traveling to South Africa, and there was in Cape Town, and there was one, there's a MAC cosmetic store there. But when I was in Lagos, there was, I didn't see a Sephora, I didn't see any of those. And when I was in Accra, I definitely didn't see. Is there a MAC? I don't think in Accra either. But the point is that, and it's a part of our business model, is that my sister and I want to create, it sounds ambitious, but we would love to create a storefront in Accra. And I know Ghana has right now the one district, one factory rule. It sounds incredibly ambitious, but it would be amazing to even produce, who knows, an eyeliner that came out of, the continent. And so, these are long-term goals that I'm sharing with you guys now, but yeah.
Well, it's really about infrastructure, right? Because we need access to the network. We need access to the financials. We need access to the resources in order to do that. Like the amount of times I've had people be like, Vivian, why don't you go back home to Ghana and Togo and sell your hair there? And I'm like, if I had the cash, I can't even get the cash here. So how am I supposed to take the cash and go to Ghana and go to Togo and go to wherever and try and sell it as well? Right. But it's infrastructure. So it's all that systemic stuff that's happening that, if I go to the bank and ask for them for money, they're like, to do what? You're selling hair extensions to Black people? Why would you do? They don't even see the value in that.
It's okay, Vivian. We'll give you the loan. We'll just give you 35% interest.
Oh. Ooh, sister, I beg. Oh.
So much to say about this, Tomi. If there's no time, I'm sure I can address it in other questions.
Actually, I'm going to shift to that really quickly. But first of all, I just want to shout out the amazing participants in this conversation, because the chat box is really lit at the moment. And so many conversations, so many talking points are happening, and I'm really loving it, to be honest. And so many great points are coming from there. So I'm going to come back to that soon. But I think that this is actually a great segue, into the idea of, this year, maybe not this year, but I'll say that for this year specifically, and maybe last year, a lot of brands that are Black owned, African women owned, have come to the forefront, right? Brands like 241, brands like 54 Thrones, brands like Hana Hana Beauty, Alafia. A lot of these brands also are able to get the actual raw materials out of Africa, specifically most of them in Ghana, West Africa at the moment. And I think it's really amazing, right? So what I wanted to ask is, how do we continue to encourage the collaborative efforts between beauty entrepreneurs across the continent and the diaspora? And I asked that because, as you guys may know, there are so many brands that are not Black owned that utilize products like shea butter, moringa, but are not helping to tell these stories, right? And also basically capitalizing off of our ingredients, right? And I don't see a lot of benefits to the continent or to our people that way. So I'm interested in your thoughts on how we can continue to empower Black and African, just people across the diaspora who are of the Black descent, and taking advantage of this. And I feel like, Freda, that's probably maybe where you were going. I'd love to hear your thoughts, as well as Feven as well, and anyone else, honestly, just free flow.
I have so much to say. I think for me personally, starting Kaeme was also a pride thing, because having traveled so much and seen all these beauty cosmetic companies all over the world, I think you mentioned shea butter. One of my quote unquote used to be my favorite brands in France uses 20% shea butter in their product, and it's refined shea butter. And they sell maybe this size for 20 euros. And it's refined shea butter. And it's from Ghana. And the market is so well that I came back home and I thought to myself, this thing is at my backyard. Why isn't Ghana in the media for this? Like, nobody talks about Ghana, but everyone, all these big companies are getting their shea butter from Ghana. So why isn't Ghana in the media? And there's just so much. One is because, again, systems, sometimes we appreciate the foreigner more than the local. So that's a story to talk about later. But also sometimes we don't, maybe up until recently, we used not to patronize our own. It's shea butter. I grew up, everyone here in Ghana knows about shea butter, but everyone just kind of looks down upon shea butter. So for me, what the goal was to create a product that is fully Ghanaian, that's globally competitive, that Ghanaians as well as foreigners, people from all over the world like. But more importantly, it was also to put Ghana and Africa on the map for something that's excellently done in terms of quality. That's also competing, because you have so many narratives about Africa, bad things coming from Africa. Nobody really talks much about the good things. And so for me, it was using local products, and I'm big on that, using local products. Yes, I'm helping the local community. I'm, creating employment and whatnot. But I wanted the world to know that there's something good in Ghana, in Africa, a great ingredient that is good and excellent for skincare, that is good for Ghanaians and everybody else in the world, that's of good quality. And, I started and it was tough, but now again, with momentum, with Black Lives Matter, with everything that happened with the pandemic, things are looking good now. So I think for me, the first is to patronize our own. I think we all know this. But also, again, be proud of the ingredients that we have and really use it to cater for the skin problems that we have here and to use it to solve other problems. We talk a lot about not having the skills or the systems here. It goes both ways. I mean, it goes both ways. We do have the skills. Sometimes it's just too expensive, or that, the systems here might not work as much as they work elsewhere. So it makes running a business a bit difficult. But I think we have to go through that growing pains. We have to break that barrier at some point, because if not, we will continue to be sort of like slaves to the world, where the world is coming in, grabbing what we have and making it better, and then bringing it back to us. And I have a lot of experience in the development world, doing development projects with a lot of global aid agencies. And I've seen this happen in front of me every single day. And so for me, it's actually something that's dearer to my heart than anything, because I've seen it happen. And until we patronize our own, until we're proud of what we have, whether it's our skin, whether it's the ingredients that we have locally, until we really come to own it and own our narrative, it's going to be very difficult to get to the place we want to be. But I think, like Vivian said, this is the right time. This is the right time. Yeah, it starts with us. Yes, Michelle, it does start with us.
I think one of the things that you've brought up, Freda, which is really interesting to me, is patronizing our own, but also creating products that you primarily want to market to your own. And so for me, being in Zimbabwe this year and last year, I've started using a hair product called Maintain Organics, made by a Zimbabwean woman who's probably my age, who capacitated herself, put together her capital, etc., and she's doing extremely well. And so for me, one of the things that I do wish that business people would also do is to market for your own market as well, and want to expand outside. Whereas sometimes I get the idea that making a product that's globally competitive doesn't necessarily mean that you see your own country as the globe. And so you're making a product that's globally competitive, but your idea really is to sell it from, I guess, what you consider to be the international back into the rest of the world, in which Africa might be part of it or might not be part of it. And so making globally competitive products is important, but I think conceiving of your own home ground, your own country as part of the globe is also very important.
Yeah, and let me add to that, Shingi. I think when we actually started really little. It was like a pilot in Ghana. And within Ghana, it was actually our small community, our neighborhood in which we lived. We did that. We got to a point where we felt, okay, we've got this community. We're successful here. Okay, let's expand to the next region. Okay, we think we've got Ghana covered. Okay, let's move to Ivory Coast. Let's move to. So systematically, we're moving out. Okay, now we think we got West Africa. Let's move to East Africa. And so what I always talk about is that charity begins at home shouldn't end there, right? Yeah. Looks like we're slowly capturing our continent. By the time we're done capturing our continent, we'll be ready for the world. But guess what? Our continent is so big that maybe that's all we need, you know?
And I think one of the things then when you're speaking about that is then also using that leverage that you have as you expand into the continent to help other business or entrepreneurs, people who are starting up, to capacitate them and also use your leverage to try and push governments and policies in that direction of capacitating. Because I am not, I'm not ignorant to the reality, like what Vivian was saying, that it's so expensive to be an entrepreneur in Africa. It's so expensive because you can't get access to capital. No one wants to loan you money. Many of us are living in the houses that our parents built, so they don't have our names on them. So it's very difficult to get access to money to start your businesses. And I think one of the things that we need to start doing, I think maybe this is then a provocation for me as thinkers, scholars, people who are government facing, etc., is to try and push policies in the direction of creating avenues for young people and young entrepreneurs to get access to capital, to get access to subsidies, etc., the things that would make creating businesses and creating products easier, and getting access to the markets, getting tax breaks, those sorts of things then become very important. Because I definitely know creating businesses, for instance, in Zimbabwe, is you literally have to sell your liver.
Like for me, it's even as simple as this. I was born in Ghana, immigrated to Canada, gave up my Ghanaian citizenship. For me to go back to Ghana, I got to get a visa every single time. And then the whole thing about getting a visa is a problem. But I don't know why someone from Barbados doesn't need a visa to go to Ghana, but I need a visa to go to Ghana, right? And it's something as simple as doing that is just preventing me from doing those sorts of things. Right. So if there's anybody out there that wants to help me, because if there's two things I know well, I know how to do business, like how to do especially e-commerce and how to do marketing. So if anyone out there wants to help me bring my business and bring my knowledge and bring my whatever to West Africa, I could start there. Ghana, Togo. I'm more than willing, not a problem. I just help me get a visa.
I love the way where this conversation is going. And I really appreciate this, Shingi, all of the points you've made, because I don't know if you guys have noticed that in the past year, 2 years, fintech has grown a lot in Nigeria and has received a lot of investments in Nigeria. And it's also received a lot of investments out of Nigeria, out of Africa, the continent as well, right? And parallel to that, you can say that in the United States, we've started to see a lot more of Black-owned beauty brands finally getting investments and funding. And so I always wonder, and I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this, is when will African investors start to see beauty as a real business investment, so that it's not as much of a struggle as it is? Because I think that we have all these ideas of what we could do, how we can do, and make things happen more in Africa. Whereas, like you guys have mentioned right now, investments is truly the biggest issue that I would say, one of the biggest issues that I would say that you guys have, right? And my question is, what responsibilities do regulatory bodies in Africa have to ensure that, the demand of African beauty products regionally and globally translates to concrete and sustained economic growth, not just for the continent, right? But also for female, because let's think about it too. The fact is, most of the people who are launching beauty businesses are women, and how does all of that play into it? And I'd love you guys to answer. I would like Feven to answer first if she has a thought on this.
Well, I would just say, because my company is based we're headquartered in Los Angeles, California. Our manufacturers are in Canada, but the statistics are, the beauty industry is what I think is 824 billion, or no, sorry, was it 532 billion? Sorry, and in terms of capital injection and getting venture capital here, I think what the statistics are 0.2% go to women of color. I would just, and then even on the continent, I was reading an article, and this is me just, I don't live on the continent, obviously. I travel there, and so I'm living kind of vicariously through what you guys are saying. But there's $10 million just money that's just sitting there that no one is even taking seriously. I don't know what it's going to take I don't know what it's going to take for African investors to take the Black beauty industry seriously. Look at the numbers. I actually don't have an answer. I just know that my sister and I will continue to, do our best. And I actually don't have an answer. I would love to hear from, is it pronounced Shingi? I would like to hear what your thoughts are, to be honest with you. I'm curious.
Yeah, I feel like maybe one of the misconceptions is that the African beauty market is not lucrative. Maybe that's one of the misconceptions, but there are people who are making ridiculous amounts of money from the African market. Hair, for instance, hair and skin products, which are both legal and shouldn't be legal. So when you think about skin bleaching products, for instance, that is a multi-billion-dollar business. I think it's supposed to go up to $17.9 billion in 2024. It is a ridiculous amount of money that these companies are making, basically marketing products to lighten our skin, to take away blemishes, to make us a little bit fairer, etc. So I think African investors, I don't think it's that they don't know that there's money to be made. I don't think that they take African markets as seriously as they take other markets. But I also think that when you think about what it is that our governments drive and make easy to do business in, it is extractive economies. So we know that people who have lots of money to invest within our countries, who are African, will usually go to those extractive economies first, because that is where they're going to make a larger share of profit. So that might have something to do with it as well, because definitely there are African companies that are doing mining, farming, those sort of construction, that sort of extractive work, and they're making a lot of money as well. So perhaps it's shifting those business conceptions and making space for African investors in those areas.
Right. I was speaking specifically just from my lens when I traveled to, like the last time I was in Accra was right before the pandemic, the year of the return. I didn't see any beauty brands. Freda, you can tell me, but I didn't see any, there wasn't.
I think Shea Moisture. Shea Moisture.
Okay, I want to be specific. I'm talking about like a foundation company, I'm talking about like cosmetics. That's what I mean by beauty. So I meant in that sense. I went to the market and I saw, quite frankly, I don't know, like bootleg versions of Kylie cosmetics that were filled with toxic chemicals. And I just thought that's just horrible. We deserve premium. And when I say we, I'm talking about Africans, we deserve premium products. And that's what I observed there. But you could just, if you'd like to add on to what I'm saying, I don't know. I didn't see MAC Cosmetics. I didn't see an Estee Lauder. I know Unilever is in SA, right? I think that area, but
In Ghana too.
I think you also need to look at, you know, wages, right? Because you're not going to see Estee Lauder in the markets, right? You know, for the people who are coming from villages or whatever the case may be to buy these products, that's what they can afford, right? So if anything, maybe we need to start looking at more affordable options of the Kylie cosmetics, right? Instead of importing it, you know, China, they're just formulating a bunch of stuff and then shipping it and people are buying it. Right. So, and I think it's all, I'm sure Shingi could say it better than I can, but you know, it's all systemic, right? Because we are low on the priority list of people and especially because we're Black women. Right. And so our need, sorry.
That's a deeper conversation. Yeah.
Oh
Right.
yeah. That's a whole other panel.
But you know, you're absolutely right, because if you think about the ways in which the countries that have done very well in particular industries have done that, they create protectionist regulations for their industries to grow. They create subsidies for people in their country, citizens from their countries, to then invest in those same industries. So the profit margins then start to resemble the profit margins of international companies, specifically because the governments allow for that investment to take place without significant competition. So if you wanted a Zimbabwean or a South African version of MAC or Estee Lauder to compete at the same level of Estee Lauder and MAC, you'd need to exclude Estee Lauder and MAC, particularly because Estee Lauder and MAC have got the benefit of decades of market shares, marketing, advertisement, influencers, etc. So if our countries don't jump onto the bandwagon of realizing that they need to exclude some of these products from our markets in order for our own products to flourish, that won't happen. Because really, if you think about it, how would we compete producing a product at the level of Estee Lauder and then wanting to sell it at the level of Estee Lauder in South Africa, for instance, where really you would need to sell it at 2 or 3 times the price in order to be able to afford the marketing, the advertising, etc., for it to be, you know, sold at that level. And so, for instance, South Africa has got protectionist measures on car assembly, right? So the reason why a lot of the companies that do well in South Africa do as well as they do is because Japan can't import Hyundai into South Africa. South Africa only allows South Africans to buy Hyundais that are made in South Africa by South African assemblies that employ South African people. And so when South Africans buy a Hyundai, they are buying a car that was made in South Africa for South Africans, that is banked, etc., through the South African banking system. So when then you move to Zambia or Zimbabwe, etc., where you can import a Hyundai and it is significantly cheaper, it is significantly cheaper for us, the consumer, but it is to the detriment of our economy, because none of that stuff was made here. None of the banking takes place here. You send it to some company in Japan for you to buy it. So I think those sorts of policies and those sorts of laws and measures need to shift for us to then become more competitive in our own economies.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
That's amazing. I think someone had mentioned in the chat a question just basically referring to the fact that there's not enough data. And I do kind of agree that there isn't enough data. There's not even enough data on how Black women actually spend, or even the impact of Black beauty business on the entire beauty economy as it exists, you know? So I feel, you know, like there needs to be a lot more work there for us to have a stronger, better understanding. You know, as somebody who has worked at Estee Lauder, I know that Africa is a continent that is on their mind, but it's not a priority because it's not an emerging market, right? Whereas Asia at the moment is an emerging market. They have so many
because they're the ones making the money off of us.
Yeah, but yeah, and also because they have much like excess, you know, money. They only, you know, the idea is that they were only allowed to have 1 kid. And now that those kids have grown up, those people don't have any other kids. So there's just so much excess money for them to just spend as much as they can. But we never really think about how much, you know, African people are also spending money as they come in and out of, you know, the country, especially in duty free on beauty products, which is where a lot of African people end up spending their dollars. And, you know, Shingi, you brought up the whole, you know, skincare situation, specifically focusing on lightening, which is a huge issue. I'm sure, Feven, while you were in in the markets in Ghana, you probably saw a lot of those as well. I mean,
Billboards,
in New York, and I still go to, when I go to the African supermarket, there's still a lot of like bleaching products still available for people to buy. I'm surprised people actually are still buying this, but clearly it's a huge market. I would also say sometime last year, there was a huge deal as well in India regarding the use of lightening products, and a back and forth with L'Oreal about them selling products. And ultimately what occurred was changing the words, which I don't understand that as well, but from light and fair or lightening to just, I don't know, brightening skin products. What do you call it? What I think it still comes back to like the idea of beauty standards, but like, where are we as, where do you guys feel like we are at this moment when it comes to skin lightening? And I'm someone who grew up with family members that definitely were participating in that, but I see a generation, it's weird because I do see a generation even younger than me that still participate in skin lightening, which is shocking. People that grew up in America. And then I definitely see people as well on the other side of the spectrum who are just kind of like, I don't understand this either, you know? So I love Shingi to answer, but I also love Freda to answer, given that you actually have a cosmetics company in Ghana at the moment.
I think on a daily basis, I get, out of all the inquiries we get, about 20-30% of them are asking if any of our products can bleach or can make them fair.
I've heard that from many. I've heard that from many brand owners.
I started, I think at some point, I'm just like, you need to own up your skin. Like, you know, we don't sell any skin bleaching products, but I think people still think within those lines. People still feel that being light skinned or bleaching themselves, or, you know, whatever word you call it, is what will make them a better person or fit well in society. And it's still there. I mean, the stereotype is still there. And I've seen even educated people. I mean, recently a colleague met me and he was like, oh, look at my wife. She's very light in skin and she's so beautiful. And I asked him, is she beautiful because she's light, or is she beautiful because she's beautiful? And, you know, in Chi, they say, Obakoko, like a light-skinned girl. And, you know, there's still that mindset. And I see the shift, but it's going to take some time because it's something that's been ingrained in our brains. And again, back to colonialism, same way that a white person comes here and we kind of let down all our guards and let them do any and everything or give them whatever they need. It's sometimes we say, oh, no, I'm proud of my black skin, my chocolate skin, whatnot. As soon as a light-skinned person, a white person comes into the picture, like things change. There was an incident in Ghana, I think last year, where we had a college student from the US come to Ghana, and in a matter of like hours, he had access to our parliament, and obviously he wasn't so smart and started broadcasting all over social media that he came to Ghana and he didn't even do anything. He doesn't have any network, no access, but his color gave him access to the president. And it was a big deal on social media. And that also started the whole colorism issue, where somehow we see color and it's like we lose it. So we have that still exists. And then I also see a movement, especially in the skincare industry, at least here, where people are starting to own up their skin color. People are saying, okay, I'm dark, I'm chocolate, and I love it. And the fact that you're light-skinned or lighter than me is not going to change or make me feel, you know, worse than, you know, you. So it's, I would say it's still there. I honestly don't know the way forward on that. But what I know is that we do get a lot of inquiries about bleaching products. And I've actually been advised to start bleaching products because it will make me more money than what I'm doing. And I always say that that's really not the goal of Kaeme. So somebody else can start making money using that, but I'm not comfortable. I don't believe in that. and therefore I'm not gonna be doing that. But that's a challenge that we still have here, at least in Ghana for sure. And as someone, a beauty entrepreneur, that's a challenge I face every single day. In fact, a lot of it comes from Nigeria too as well. But it's an issue. It's an issue, and I don't know. Again, it all has to do with changing mindsets and perspectives. But it's something that's really deeply ingrained in us, dating way back to colonialism. So it's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say.
I think, Freda, you're reading on the money there, because really it is something that if you live in a European state or etc., where there are lots of people who are of European descent, they think that perhaps people who bleach skin over there are because they look at white people every day. So the assumption being that people who look at Black people every day wouldn't have that conception of beauty. But because of our colonial experience, exactly what people in the African diaspora experience with regards to whiteness and beauty is what we experience on the continent with regards to whiteness and beauty. And colorism is one of those intriguing aspects of our history and our contemporary ideas around beauty, because it is counterintuitive to how we are now conceiving of Black pride, Black royalty, watching all of these Black people on TV, etc. I mean, that whole big thing with Black Panther and what does Beyonce say? Black is king, etc. The idea being that we are celebrating our African heritage, our African roots, our skin, our beauty, but still at the social level, people have these very strongly ingrained ideas about what beauty is. And it really is the intersection of racism, sexism, hegemonic gender, and patriarchy. So at the middle of that is this idea that this particular type of woman is the most attractive woman, the one who is lighter skinned with a fair tone of light skin, which is even. Usually she also will have a longer nose, a longer face, very long hair, and a pristine body, a Naomi Campbell body or a Jordan Woods body, that sort of a body. And so when we speak about colorism and then we move on to skin bleaching, while people know that it's dangerous, the people who choose to bleach their skin, as far as they are concerned, are making an informed decision about what they consider to be important in their society. At which point skin color is important. So in the same way that people don't understand people who starve themselves because we all need to eat, they're making an informed decision about what they would like their body to look like. And if eating or eating too much counteracts what they would like to look like, then they're not going to eat. Similarly, people who want to look more attractive to the people who are looking at them will bleach their skin because they want to be more attractive for the market that they exist in. And so in that regard, I think one of the mistakes we make when we talk about skin bleaching is assuming that the people who bleach their skin are irrational. They are rational beings making very calculated decisions about what is important within their society. Whether it's about getting married, whether it's about the conceptions that are attached to people who are lighter skinned, whether it's about what is attached to being beautiful, whether it's about what is attached to being modern or more attractive. If you think about being married, think about the things that are attached to not being married, right? How people talk about women who fail to keep a man, that she might be rude or crazy, obnoxious, or she's not domesticated, she brings shame to her family. Maybe it's an indication that her parents didn't raise her well. All of those things, right? So when young people say that they're in a rush to get married, what they're running away from is the stereotypes that come from being single for too long, and also the advantages that come from being married. So if light skin then is a currency on the marriage market, it makes sense to then want to make yourself look lighter. Whether it's permanent or not, it does make sense to those people to then think to themselves, what would make me more attractive to the people who are trying to marry people? Or what would make me more attractive to the people who are giving jobs to people? What would make me more attractive to the people who are looking for receptionists or waitresses or models? Skin bleaching then becomes quite a rational choice.
I could listen to you all day.
I mean, totally. been such an amazing conversation, and I'm not gonna lie, I have these conversations almost all the time with many people, and it just, there's never an ending point you could go on because there's just so many different sectors and different ways you can divide them. But one thing I also really believe is that as Feven says, just even owning a beauty brand in this world in itself is a form of activism. And I do believe that. I do believe Black joy, African joy, is a form of activism. And I think enjoying beauty, despite all of its political implications on us, because it's not an implication on other races to an extent, but it always seems to be definitely an implication on us. I think that even looking at beauty from the perspective of just joy and just having a joyful moment in beauty, because I think we should all and take part in it and have fun with it, right? Like everyone else gets to. So I wanted to ask as my closing question for everyone, just one thing that you feel that must change this industry, and one thing that you've been really thrilled about. And I always start with the negative first and close the positive, because I think the positive is way more impactful and much more necessary even.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. You said what's the one?
One thing that you feel absolutely has to change, and the one thing that
has changed.
Yes, and then and then close with one thing that you're incredibly happy about so far.
Well, I guess I'll start. One thing that absolutely has to change. I had a couple of meetings in New York before the pandemic, and I had the opportunity. My sister and I had the opportunity to meet with. I won't name the individuals, but we had the opportunity to meet with people that were in the C-suites of a major conglomerate, right? And as I was looking across the table, it was all white men, and they don't represent the current demographic. So that has to absolutely change. Our voices matter, and we deserve a seat at the table. As I said earlier, investing in Black-owned businesses and Black companies is not a charity. It's good business. So that absolutely has to change. I'm going to end with a positive. Because of the Black Lives Matter movement, it's not a moment, it's a movement. Because my sister and I, we've seen major opportunities. We're seeing companies like Sephora, approach us, and we're also seeing an increase in Black-owned beauty brands that are actually, in those storefronts. So I think that's a great thing. But I cannot stress enough that it is not a charity; it's good business, and we represent the current demographic, and we matter, and our voices matter. So that's the good thing. So I'm gonna end it at that.
Freda, do you want to go?
Sure. One thing that should change, I think for me, it's just perspectives, like how we look at things and how others look at us. And I think this is here, it's in the head. And changing what's in the head is tough, but it has to happen. And when I talk about this, I'm also referring mainly to the continent. There's a lot that we need to change in our thinking, and that's what's going to move us forward, really. So we need to change our perspectives, the way we look at things, the way we look at ourselves, the way we value ourselves. And I think that's a big step. One thing that I'm excited about, I think there's a lot of movement in terms of Africa now being brought to the fore. I think Africa, Black people were getting a bit more visibility, leverage, not as much as we deserve, but I think that in the past few years, we're getting a lot of visibility, and I'm excited about that and the potential for that to keep happening, and again, to bring us to the same seat as others. So that's one thing that I'm excited about.
I love that. I'm going to pass to Vivian, and then after Vivian, obviously Shingi.
You know what? Both Feven and Freda have said, what needs to be said. I'm going to give up my time so Professor Shingi can just lay it down.
Professor.
I'm giving that up.
I'm laughing. Thank you, Vivian. I don't know why
It's usually Super Soul Sunday is now, what is it Thursday? I feel like she has brought Super Soul Sunday today. That's
For me, think that the thing that needs to change, I think also because I'm in this space as a scholar, as a thinker, I think one of the things that we need to start doing as Africans and African women is making meaning out of ourselves, creating systems of value that emanate from ourselves. And I think one of the things with beauty that has been like a disruption in our trajectory of beauty is that our understanding of beauty is intersected or interrupted by all these images of people who don't look like us, and ideas about beauty that hasn't come from people like us, that hasn't come from our grandmothers, etc. When our products are used, they're imported back to us. And so shea butter is something that we all want to use, but it's refined and packaged, etc., for us. And we aren't doing the commiserate thing ourselves of making meaning out of these products ourselves. So I think the thing that needs to change is making meaning out of ourselves. And one of those things that I am very passionate about, I know one of my sisters was on here, Sipokazi, is teaching about ourselves, writing about ourselves, thinking about ourselves, creating dialogue about ourselves, which is why this panel is really important, because we need to start having conversations about what is beautiful, or having conversations that affirm our beauty, having conversations that affirm our different forms of identity, in the same way that we have whole symposiums about bell hooks or Toni Morrison. We should have whole symposiums about Owino Okech or Sipokazi Magadla. We should have conversations about the thinkers and the provocateurs and the activists in our own spaces. So for me, that needs to change. What we start to see as beautiful and powerful and brave comes from making meaning out of ourselves. So that needs to shift. I think one thing that I love, to be fair, about the beauty movement is having access to, because of the products that all of you women make, having access to things that allow us to feel more beautiful and represent ourselves more wholly in our spaces. Having clip-ins that actually look like my hair and that aren't, long extensions that go green at the end, etc. Because when I was in high school, oh yes, Vivian, that's exactly what I mean. When I was in high school, there was only 2 or 3 types of extensions, color 1, color 2, color 33, right? That was it. And so now having this plethora of choices is, for me, is one of the things that I love to celebrate, because I know that my nieces all have different versions of themselves that they have in their heads, versions of themselves that look like Bonang, versions that look like Shoma Josie, versions that look like Boiti, versions that look like, Usiswa. And for me, that is very, very important. And something that when I think about it, it makes my heart smile.
That is amazing. Thank you guys so much. I always love having these conversations, because not only I really get to learn a lot too. I feel like people don't realize how much we all get to learn in these conversations. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass it to Nana. Hi.
Hi, thank you all so much. This has been such a powerful, enlightening, amazing conversation. You all make us so proud. So thank you for the work you're doing. We will look out for all of your brands, and Shingi, your book, your masterclass, your whatever it is you're going to do to teach the world. So I really appreciate the time you spent with us. I hope the audience has learned something meaningful. I hope we have demonstrated the promise of our soft power and what happens when we come together to have these important conversations. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will turn it over to Obi to close us out. Obi, you are on mute, so please unmute to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Such a powerful, powerful session. I'm just waiting for what happens next. I think, what you guys talked about and the way you've addressed the issue has elevated the conversation, and I've definitely learned a lot. Prof, we're just waiting to know when the podcast is starting, or I don't know what is happening. Something's got to be happening, so we can all sign up.
There's way too much pressure coming out of this panel.
No. I think you've just got like 50 new fans that we need to all sign up. But to all the ladies, thank you so much for joining us and for being with us, and to the audience as well. Africa Soft Power. Thanks everybody. Thank you so much.